and let's get started. Dana's going to introduce our speaker.
All right, so our speaker today is Anita Teller. So she's a founding member of the Heartwood chapter. She served as a botanist and conservation manager for Mercer Botanic Gardens, Harris County since December of 2000. Teller directs operations for Mercer Botanic Gardens, Mercer Botanical Center for Herbarium, Botanical Library, and Illustrations Collections and Databases. A seed bank for the Center for Plant Conservation, labs and garden science shop, and associated conservation room. Endangered and native plant display gardens and prairie preserve. She coordinates the plant conservation role. And personally, I have the pleasure and our shared opportunity of being able to count the Texas prairie dawn endangered flower with Anita and her team a few weeks ago, and it was fantastic.
Yeah, Dana's in the picture, although everybody's got their hats on. Be sure to look in the display cabinet outside. It's we set up a display about endangered Texas prairie dawn, the monitoring, and the work that we do with that plant in partnership with a billion other people. So, anyway, welcome, you guys. We're told the restrooms are around the corner, right? And there's a bottle filling station right around the corner as well. Okay, coffee's in there. And anyway, I'll go ahead and get started. Let's see. Can we get back to presenter view?
You are going to presenter. Just do the clicker.
Okay. All right.
Oh, you'll have to look at the monitor up here. Is that okay?
As in, okay. All right. So no speaker notes?
Oh, Virginia.
Anyway, I will get started because I actually don't need speaker notes. It helps me keep it going. So, how many of you have been to Mercer? So a good portion of you. Good. So we're open year round. We're free. So please tell your friends. We're sort of the hidden gem and do some info. We've been around since 1974. So we just had our 50th a couple of years ago. Can you hear me, everybody? Okay, good. And so we're delighted that you're here. You know, we have a typical botanic garden mission to serve the public, serve the horticulture industry, and the scientific community. So, let's see. Right here is a view of our various activities, including maintaining our endangered species program. Texas prairie dawn is down at the bottom to the right. The Mercer Botanical Center. Some of you signed up for a tour today. So after this class, we'll take a break and then we'll drive over to the Mercer Botanical Center. It's separated by Cypress Creek, so we'll have to go across the bridge and make a right. Takes about 4 minutes to drive there. So we're do all kinds of things in that building. We're sort of like the behind the scenes facet of Mercer. We maintain the botanical database for the living and the bird collections. We maintain a seed bank for a national organization called the Center for Plant Conservation. So for the national collection of rare plants, native rare plants. That includes Canada and the United States. And we also have the Botanical Science Shop. So y'all notice all the signs here. That's created by us at the center. And we have a very vibrant intern program, and we've been very lucky for over 10 years for Heartwood to help host our symposium every first Wednesday in August. So hopefully some of you will attend this year. Starting next week, we're interviewing our candidates. We have some great kids from various colleges, even Colorado State, who are applying this year. Rice, UT, and Stephen F. Austin, San Jose State University. And that program is totally funded by private donors. So we really thank local support for that. All right. Also shown on there is our wonderful botanical library. And our library is getting close to 6,000 holdings. The catalog is online. If you're interested, you can scan the QR code or grab a brochure back there on the rack. I also brought other flyers about different programs at Mercer, primarily the conservation programs. The general Mercer information is outside in the foyer, so help yourself. We have a very active calendar of free programs for the public. Happy Earth Week, everybody.
Yeah.
All right. So yesterday and this weekend, we're hosting also the Texas Arbor Day events here. So giving a lot of free trees and things. And also front at the desk, they're free mountain, that is Texas laurel tree seeds. Do not eat them. They're very pretty, but they're highly toxic. But you may plant them and enjoy those. So, all right. Our library right now is maintained by 3 librarians, and one of them is here today. Raise your hand, Bianca. There you go. We're so happy to have Bianca join us. And you know, we haven't had that many librarians in the 20 years I've been here. I think this is probably our 3rd group of librarians in 20 years. So it's pretty remarkable. People really enjoy working in our library. So come check it out. And our herbarium collections. Who doesn't know what herbarium is? Everybody knows, okay? It's a dried plant collection, sort of like a library of dried plants used for reference. And did you know that we have here at Mercer the largest collection, the largest herbarium that's a public herbarium in Houston Metro? So come use it. We offer a lot of private tours to small groups, and some of you lucky ones will get to see it. All right, so back to conservation. In 1989, we joined that organization, the Center for Plant Conservation. It's made up of about 81 botanical institutions from across the states. You can see that all the big ones are lit up, and Chicago and Missouri Botanic, Fairchild, various ones all over California. So we work together as a consortium to manage the collection of rare and endangered plants. That's also our goal, is to put these plants back into wild. So our seed banks are not seed jails. They are used for research and for restoration. So we have a lot of groups using the seeds that we maintain at Mercer, because Mercer itself doesn't have the staff to do all these wonderful projects that are going on with these endangered plants. So 81 we maintain total about 50% of the imperial native plants. There, our subsets of seeds are backed up with the national USDA lab in Fort Collins, as well as with our regional partners. We're also part of Botanic Gardens Conservation International, where we share our living plant inventory list with all these member institutions. That's around 900 or so. So people all over the world, primarily the States, if they are doing research on a particular plant that we have, we can help them with that. We're also part of global consortia, including conifers, cycads, the ebony, oaks. I love this one, the North American Fruit and Nut Tree Crop Relative Group. And then also part of Smithsonian's Global Genome Initiative, where we're collecting plant samples for a national genetic bank. We also work as a Louisiana iris species preservation facility. So another really interesting project we did was with the Millennium Seed Bank program, which is in England, but they sponsored the collection of plants in Texas, starting with their partner, the Lady Bird Johnson Wildfire Center, and Lady Bird and that current conservation director and I got together and we moved the program over to East Texas, Southeast Texas. And so Mercer served as a host institution for about 80 volunteers, about 8 different workshops here hosted at Mercer. And we hosted seed biologists from Kew, Botanic Gardens in England, and Seed Bank, and our great seed biologists from Lady Bird Johnson Wildfire. So that helped bank over 100 East Texas plant species for this bank. The U.S. is a major holder of those collections, but we have backup collections in England as well. So this was actually for the common native plants, not the rare ones. So just preparing for the future, right? All right, so y'all get a chance to take a look at the Endangered Species Garden today. We're proud to put this on our tour circuit for kid tours and various scouts and parks and wildlife. NIPSOT, you know what NIPSOT is, everybody? The Native Plant Society of Texas. So I don't have to say all that, NIPSOT. We're very active with NIPSOT for the last several years. We've been hosting the classes for the Native Plant Society landscape certification classes. So we just finished teaching the 4th one in partnership with the Mitchell family's Cooks Branch Conservancy Preserve up in Montgomery. And very excellent class for a first time run, ran perfect. So I highly recommend you get a wonderful advanced training on ours for taking these classes. And we really enjoy doing it. We run classes in this building, or in the case of this one in Montgomery County at Cooks Ranch. So heading on. So how do plants benefit? And all of y'all, this is all common knowledge to you. Wild plants constitute the foundation for all other life on this planet, right? So all our current crops and medicines, those wild plants serve as living reservoirs for their wild genetic characteristics. And our genetic work includes those scientists going back to wildlife just through traditional propagation methods to include some of those special factors like resistance to new pests or flooding or drought or frost or simply for nutritional taste and value in plants. So diversity in Texas, as you know, we're right behind California. We have around 6,000 native ferns, fern relatives, cone-bearing plants, and flowering plants. About 400 of these plants are found only in Texas. All right. The sheer size of our state and the fact that we have such an immense diversity in climate, geology, soils, water, topography, and 6 North American ecosystems allows for us to have an amazing background flora for an amazing fauna that's been here to stay. So think about amazing numbers of butterfly species, bird species as an example. But I don't have time to talk about the birds, the amphibians, and reptiles, and whatnot. So here in the Houston metro area, we touch on about 4 of these ecoregions. And just in East Texas, we have over 3,000 species. Threats, everybody knows all this on this slide. At various degrees, there are efforts, like in the case of the overgrazing, this is taken at the wonderful Katy Prairie ranches. They, of course, practice the best practices for ranching, rotating their cattle, and why not? It's the same thing as what happened back when we had bison roaming the prairies. So those cattle are doing the same service as the bison were. Same with mining. There are best practices for that, and we can happily work with mining and plant conservation as well. So invasive species, that's all you've already had that. A little few displays in the back, some of our actual laminated herbarium specimens that we have used in the past when we had groups of Heartwood people out here, and they've adopted sections of trails to maintain. And we still periodically do that. One of our young men on the west side will announce invasive species work days. So keep an ear out for those of you that like to do that sort of work. We partner with Parks and Wildlife Department, seems like on a daily basis. We work with several other CPC institutions here in Texas, say Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center of the Botanical Research Institute of Texas. And so these folks, the ones that have the specialist field botanists, they actually go out in the field and monitor and count and determine which of these native rare species are actually what their numbers are, if they need special attention. So that information is provided to the public. If you just go to, you can type in plant species of greatest conservation need for Texas, or do that link, and you can find out which of those plants in Texas are imperiled. So we seed bank around 30 species at Mercer, and there are about 7 of those that are federally listed. So you can see those little tick marks that shows areas in East Texas that have a high concentration of the rare species. Here's one that we work with quite a bit, only because, well, we started working with this species back in 1986. And now, in the last decade or so, have been managing a small preserve. And we'll talk about in a second here. So you may wonder, that highlighted G2S2. Does anybody know what the global and state ranks indicate? Okay. We'll briefly go over that. So if you see like a G1, that indicates that there are less than 6 occurrences of a plant species globally. Okay, and we work with some that only have like 1 occurrence in 1 county in the world. So, and then state 1 would be equivalent. Then G2S2, you climb up to 6 to 20 occurrences. And we work with a number of those, and then going up to G3S3 would be 21 to 100. And we also work with a number of the G3S3s. So some of the rare species. Here's the Prairie Dawn Preserve. Again, I mentioned since 1986, we've been working with that plant. Here in Texas, back in 86, we only knew of 1 county location. Now we're up to 6. So we keep looking, and we maintain over 30 accessions, which means a record of a particular seed collection dating back to the 80s. And you might wonder, are those still good? Well, it's amazing, but Prairie Dawn has a very high tolerance for being dried, the seeds that is, and frozen for long-term storage. So a few years back, we did some of our routine viability tests on our seeds over at the Botanical Center, and found that some of these that were over 30 years were close to over 90% viable still. That is not the case for all species. Some of them don't last that long in a frozen state. And there's some species that cannot tolerate being dried or frozen. And that would be like the oats or a lot of our aquatic species. So we have a special refrigerator set up for those, and that seems to work. All right, so here's more about the preserve. We do a lot of baking at that preserve as a backup. It's very small. It's only 3.6 acres. And it's about a half an hour drive from here down, going west on 1960, and then you hang a left on Putnam Road and a right on West Greens. And if you miss the preserve, you'll end up at Willowbrook Mall. So that's how isolate. Well, it's kind of a little pocket prairie right in the middle of industry. And so here's a map. And this is what it looks like. There's about 6,000 square feet of the habitat. And what's interesting about this is that we, an environmental consulting company that designed this preserve, developed swales and berms around the preserve to help control the hydrology of the site. Because these plants, the Texas Prairie Dawn, are what are called saline adapted plants. So there's no way this little tiny plant can compete out in the normal prairie soil condition. It would be immediately overrun. It only gets about this tall, sometimes about that tall. Mostly about that tall, right, Dan? And, so it requires, saline areas in order for it to survive. That doesn't mean that it needs salt, it's just able to tolerate salt. So here, when we grow it at Mercer, during germination trials, it can grow perfectly fine in gardens. But the other plants out on the cannot grow in the saline. So if the hydrology of the soil changes and those saline soils then become depleted, it will disappear. So this is a long-term experiment to see whether this will actually work. The first time this has ever been done. So there have been a few years, and you'll see in a minute. Let me tell you. In addition to Prairie Dawn, we also have 3 other imperial plants out there. The Houston Camphor Daisy, the pretty yellow one that blooms in the fall, and Texas Windmill Grass, which we had quite a few in past years, and now we're sort of in the downswing. Go back up. It's a perennial grass. And then coastal gay pepper, little purple beauty there on the right side, which is hangs out beyond the saline areas. And as does the chloris, the Texas windmill grass. The Ray Jackson is a little bit more resistant to saline situations, so you'll see it hanging out in the saline slicks. So here you go. You see that bottom right picture? That's what a saline slick looks like. They're bare. Not much can grow there. So there's our group, this 2026. We found over 20,000 plants out there this year, which is a really good year, the best year we've had. But there's been some years, and I about had a heart attack, we only had about 60 plants in plant property. This is an annual plan, so it's expected, Parks and Wildlife, the same number. It's an annual, come back. Okay, and it did. So anyway, tracking the plants is important. We're also tracking the climate information. And once we get a large enough data set, then we can see if there are any trends related to rainfall and temperature.
I have a quick question
Yeah.
about it. Is it a protected site, or would we be allowed access to the photographs? I saw the fences.
If it were not fenced, we would have 4-wheelers out there
Right.
camping. So it's fenced. We do allow small group tours, Fish and Wildlife.
But we
Yeah.
can't just pop there and take photographs. Would we have
With
certain?
invitation with us, and we love to take small groups. We take Native Plant Society folks, the Center for Plant Conservation Board. And when the Texas Master Naturalists had their state conference a few years ago, we took a special tour out there, and then we visited gardens, and then we visited the Mercer Botanical Center. It was really a great all-day field trip. So maybe we'll do that again in the future when it comes back to the Houston area.
On that slide, I was curious about the wetland mower.
Yeah.
What's different about mower?
Big tires, wide tires, not super heavy, and spread out. Traditional mowers, if you were to take them out there, which we did many times, get stuck. All right, and you don't want to rut up the soil because it's that damages the soil ecosystem. So we saved our grant money over many years and applied it to getting this mower.
So how often do you mow then?
Lately, we've been mowing right after, the fall, after everything's back in seed. And then, we've been mowing then. And then we can mow any time of the year, say, if, we've got a patch of woody plants like yopon creeping back. We can go out and just mow, and it can mow in sand. So it's really has made our life much easier having that mower. So here you see Harvey on there, the high lip. You see that yellow rectangle after that was when we had some very low counts. And now we're gonna have to adjust our y-axis now to get the 20,000 on there. So, okay, then we also, like I mentioned, host other groups. We had a wonderful talk back in March, and I think, Martha, you attended, right? The talk where the young lady, Julia Freeman from Illinois, spoke about
Yes.
The pollination of Texas prairie dawn and seed dispersal, and it was very well attended. We had over 80 attending online, and thank you, Heartwood, for co-hosting that. Thanks. So it's really great. This is their last year to work here, but they're working on getting another grant, hopefully, to include more genetic work on these. And they've already taken samples of our little subpopulations on the preserve to study that, hopefully in the future. We also, last year was our last of 3 years where we hosted the East Texas Bee Survey, a Texas Comptroller grant awarded to Sam Houston State and Stephen F. Austin University. So I can't tell you what bee it is, but they discovered a bee there that was out of its range. So this will be an interesting finding when that report comes out. So here we are. See the bus that was during our Master Naturalist Conference a few years ago. And then hopefully interpretive information will be put out there soon. And then we also work with wetland species very actively with that plant in the background there, Hibiscus daisy calyx, native river rose mallow. We're working with 2 experimental sites, one down in Houston, here in Harris County, and also an experimental site in Montgomery County. Those are actually out of its range, but again, these are experimental sites studying pollination, recruitment, things like that. And then we do lots of work with big thicket species, and just two of those, the Texas trailing phlox I'll mention. We worked with a group that monitors the occurrence of these plants in the Big Thicket National Preserve. And here's one of our surveys back a few years ago with the Master Naturalists at the Big Sandy unit. And then one of our staff, Zoe Madranga, she's completing her graduate work at Sam Houston State University. And for her project, she's studying the pollination biology and other characteristics of the scarlet catchfly, which also occurs in the Big Thicket area in East Texas. If you've never been to the Big Thicket Preserve, I highly recommend it. I've got some brochures back there. It's just amazing there, especially the carnivorous plant trails, just incredible. So please contact me by email if you're interested in joining. Carrie Hernandez, our curator, and me, and we have a very dedicated team of Heartwood folks and Mercer volunteers for projects, you know, endangered species and native garden. Carrie's out there every Tuesday and Thursday, but one must contact us before you intend coming out. Because sometimes we're out away in the field or at a conference or whatever. Then we also have a conservation nursery behind the botanical center. We need help. In fact, Thursday we received 40 of a not rare, but a good restoration gay feather, the sharp stem gay feather from Katie Envy, one of our good partners down in Houston, as a rescue. And we'll be potting those up sometime next week. I have no idea when, because our schedule is like crazy next week. But, those are the types of things that we need help. And then seed work, which is seasonal, working on the seed collections. Then all the time, Carrie is really getting our herbarium up to date and working very closely with different volunteers, data entry and curation. And then things like field work. Those of you that really like to get out in the field and are field party, you can handle heat, cold, and winter. We really appreciate the help with doing restoration work at the preserve or doing monitoring at their preserve or other experimental sites. And thank you. So, section 1. So, guys, everybody got one of those pretty conservation brochures. So, if you'd like, we can stretch our bones and walk out to the endangered species and everything. That's rain today, is it? All right, so today we'll just work on using some of those descriptive botanical terms while examining plants. And those of you that visit the Botanical Center and you look at the metal cabinets, see in the pictures there, those are filled with dry plant specimens. And on the doors of those cabinets, the plants are filed by their family names. Well, we use magnets for the family names. That way we can expand or contract the collection. But another reason is, why be that flexible? Well, plants, as Sam let you know, are a group based on characteristics of their reproductive parts, be it spores, cones, flowers, fruits, vegetative features, and genotype. So back decades and centuries ago, genotype wasn't, a practice that we used at that time. So now, with that new technology, we're now determining relationships of plants that we never did before. And because of that, what's happening? Plant names change. Plant family names change. Families are being split. Families are being consolidated. So I never get rid of my magnetic family names. Put them inside the cabinet. They may come back, depending on what research is done next. So it's just a fact. We have to be plastic and adapt to the newest, latest technology. So here's that great book that I mentioned. And then did Sam talk about the why we use Latin? That it's a dead language. So that way, using Latin names, Greek names, they won't change. Right? So that's very helpful. Have you ever tried looking up a plant by its common name and not by its scientific name? Not a good thing to do, because a lot of plants regionally and even across the globe go by many different common names. It's not like the birds, there's a taxonomic group that just regulates the name of common birds. No, all birds on Earth. So that hasn't happened to plants yet. So pronunciation, okay. It is amazing when you can find, just look up the scientific name in Google or whatever engine, and you'll get pronunciation guides. Although they may be European pronunciations or American. So people really don't get too worked up about pronunciation. Just say it. I grew up in North Alabama, as you can tell, but I have German parents, so it's like I'm still getting things wrong. But so be flexible, okay? So today you'll look at different plants, and I'll give you a really quick snapshot of the plant kingdom and other plant-like organisms. So algae, I mentioned I have a sample of algae, a little teeny aquatic plant over here. These plants are special in that they don't have vascular tissues. They're typically in an environment where they don't need specialized conducting cells. All right. They reproduce by spores, right? Lichens are a wonderful symbiotic relationship between algae or bacteria and fungus. Okay, so you can have the kingdom Monera, which bacteria are in, and the plant kingdom, which the algae are in, plus a fungus, which is in its own separate kingdom. So all together. Now fungi is typically when you're learning an introduction to fungus about mycology fungi. It's included in the plant kingdom when you take plant botany classes, but they're actually closer to animals. But anyway, remember that they don't have cellulose in their walls. They have chitin, and they're not photosynthetic. So we have a little example over there of that. And mosses, liverworts, and hornworts. So big pan of moss that the group brought over, you can take a look at that. And a cute container of some liverworts called Bartantia. Again, these are spore-producing plants. There's limited in size due to the fact that they don't have conducting cells for nutrients or water. They require water for reproduction to move their eggs and their sperm around. All right. Then moving up to the vascular spore plants. Whisper. This is a really cool plant. It has still spore producing, but it does have a vascular system. So you can tell it's, can grow in height. This one's found all over the world. And then others, quillworts, we work with one endangered quillwort, the Louisiana quill award. Should have pointed it out, forgot to, in the, water area of the endangered species one. Horsetails, another example of a vascular spore producing plant. Okay, and then finally, the big showy fern, right? So this is an example of a wood fern. It's a great ground cover fern that we use in our landscaping class. Okay, so again, reproduce by spores, no seeds, require water for reproduction. All of those. And then we jump up to the naked seed plants, gymnosperms. In other words, that means that their seeds are not covered by a true fruit. Okay? They have true stems and leaves and roots because all of those organs have vascular phloem and xylem, right? Y'all are familiar with those terms from reading your chapters, right? And phloem conducts what?
Sugar.
Yeah, the sugars, the food, you know, like the blood and us. And xylem conducts what? Water and minerals, right? They are reproduced by seeds and do not have true flowers. They're typically wind pollinated, all right? So the male pollen is transferred by the wind to the female cones for reproduction. And include the example of the sago palm, which is a cycadena, you know, a monocot palm right here. And this is one leaf front. So because the blade is dissected, it's called what type of leaf? A compound leaf, right? And because it's arranged in like a feather, it's called pinnately compound. Pinna is another word for feather, right? So, all right. So ginkgos, and then we have conifers like the loblolly. Fine example I have over here. Okay. The big woody cone is the female cone. The male cones are those squiggly little yellow things that pop up around February to March every year, right? Okay. And then there are other interesting gymnosperms as well. And then now we'll talk about the wonderful flowering plants everybody loves. Pay attention to those. They're typically classified into two major groups, although now you'll see additional groups described. I forgot to look over one more book. Texas book about including these new terms, the U, the true dicots, and then some of the early and basal angiosperms. So, but we still use these two major divisions when we're, discussing plants. So we'll stick to those today. And monocot is the entire name is monocotyledon, which means mono means what? One, right? And cotyledon is the seed leaf. So monocotyledon would be a plant that has one seed leaf, like corn, your grains are what the most economically important ones in production right now. And they typically have parallel venation also in their veins. When you look at, there we go. Looking at the iris, is a good example of parallel veins in this, okay? And then dicotyledonous plants are, there are many more of those than there are monocotyledons. But they, and I forgot to do this, but when you soak your beans, right, before you make soup, you notice that that seed coat will come off of like lima beans or other large beans. And then you'll see these two hands inside. Those are the two cotyledons, so dicotyledons. Okay. And then if you were to poke around more, you'll see the embryonic leaf and the embryonic root inside those. So dicotyledonous, the flower parts are in 2s, 4s, and 5s. And then they have net-like venation in their leaves. So if you look at the samples of plants on your table, you'll notice they have net-like venation. We'll look at those in a minute. All right, let's see. All right, and then we're looking at mainly the classifications in breed, kingdoms we talked about, the plant kingdom, families. You'll notice I've written the family names down on the cards around the room. It's really helpful once you get into taking a close look at these plants, you'll notice their relationships. And try to remember a family, you know, the sunflower family, that's an easy one to think about, right? The beech family, which has the oaks, right? So here, the palm family is shown, Ericaceae, for that Sabal minor that I pointed out with the one giant leaf that's dissected palmately, right? All right. And these are just two common names that are pretty typical for the water oak there, dwarf palmetto. I chose those. And then below those ranks, below the genus and species name, you'll come across varieties depending on geographical races, perhaps, of the plants, or forms, which typically cover things like a different flower color or fruit color. Then cultivar, we talked about that with regard to the yotops looked at outside, right? So cultivar means that a human has bred the plant for a particular characteristic that they found in the wild that they want, you know, via the variegated plant or whatever the case may be. So, okay, morphology of flowers. In a minute, we'll tear apart flowers and look at this. Okay, so starting at the bottom, and that's really the best way to look at a flower. And there's a great page in that Botany in a Day book about this. When you're starting to examine a flower, trying to figure out what flower is this, you start at the bottom and you remove the sepals, and collectively, often those are green, right? Collectively, those make up the calyx, okay? And then the next rank up would be the petals, right? And collectively, that would be the corolla, right? So you would be counting petals, you would be counting sepals, you'd see how they were attached to the main flower part. And remember, all these individual parts of a flower, these are all modified leaves. I mean, that's how they evolved. Basically, leaves change their function, through time. And, that's what we have here. And then the reproduction parts, the male part is, referred to as the stamen. Stamen, all right? With the anther, the top, and the filament. The anther is where the pollen is located. And the pistil, the female part, has the sticky stigma at the top, to which the pollen adheres. And a style, the long stalk that attaches it to the ovary, where the eggs are now. All right. So in the case of this flower, there's a term for this type of flower that has both the male and the female parts. So you'll see this when you're reading different, books, wildflower books, whatever. They'll say it's the perfect flower. Not because it's beautiful, but because it has male and female parts on one flower. And they're functional, okay? Or bisexual, as both male and female, or hermaphroditic, okay? So it's those three terms. Now, we looked at the holly and talked about that it's dioecious. And basically that means two houses. So you have a separate male plant and a separate female. They have male flowers on the male, female flowers on the female. A lot of times you'll see what looks like a female flower on the male plant, but they're non-functional. Sometimes they are functional. And anything goes, okay? So might get confused. You'll be looking at a male yopon, you'll see what looks like a female flower, but it's not. So then a lot of times when you hear the term monoecious, what does that look like? All right, a single plant will have separate male flowers and separate female flowers in the same plant. And that's the case, like good examples are, I picked up a hickory from the backyard at the Botanical Center. So these are the male catkins on that plant. And then if you look closely, there's some bumps along the twigs, and those are the developing fruits, the female part of the flower. Very cool. So I didn't pick one up for everybody to look at. The same case, here, more male flowers and some of the fruit. This is the shell around the outer husk has come off on those. And then also, what is this plant? Yeah, this is a post oak. For those of you that have dry areas in your yard, this one is in the kind of the hilly part of my yard. In the woodlands, they're also monoecious. And you'll see the little female acorn fruits are starting to develop. And then if you're like me, I had tons of these male catkins all covering my driveway where this.
Miss Anita,
Okay.
do you mind if I pass it along with the female? So
Definitely. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay. And then, so everybody understands that sometimes they'll also throw the bisexual plants in under the monoecious term, but we'll keep them all separate. So there's bisexual where you have functional male and female parts from one flower on a plant. Monoecious and then dioecious. Okay. So then if you're trying to key out a flower, this is very important, and we'll do this in a minute. It's not too frightening. The ovary, if the ovary is above where the stamens, the petals, and the sepals are attached to the receptacle, is like the base of the plant. You see the bottom left and bottom right shows the receptacle. And you'll see the superior ovary is superior to those parts. It's above the petals and stamens. Whereas an inferior ovary, a caterpillar. Ah, yes. Excellent. We will free Willie in a minute. Okay. Which brings a point. How many of you have read Doug Fallon's book? Bringing Nature Home. I highly recommend it. And he's also come out, it's really doing a good job on this week, on a separate, it looks like a space caterpillar. It's got that little point on the back. So that would be a moth. So why is this caterpillar important? It is our food supply. Okay, we're in a crisis right now. We're losing insect species. All so how is that going to affect the food chain? Birds, reptiles, us. Okay, it's all interconnected. So this little moth caterpillar, Doug County, what did he figure out? That 6,000 caterpillars are required for one male and female chickadee for one collection of birds. Can you imagine that? And oaks are considered, what is the word? A keystone species all across the U.S. and parts of the globe, because this genus is so important as a food source for our lepidopterans, that means butterflies and moths. So if you are able to plant something in your yard to contribute to this keystone species, helping all the creatures around you, plant and hope. All right. So I'm distracted, but here, look at a sphinx cat. I think it's a sphinx. Definitely, they have a little horn on the back. All right.
Is it any kind of oak?
Yeah, really. They're, the oaks are in their habitats, based on the habitat. So preferably pick an oak that is native to your area. And there are many, I forgot how many oaks. There's several pages in that East Texas book to choose from. We all, in our Native Plant Society certification, landscape certification classes, we always include oaks in each class, a different one. So like the water oaks here, swamp chestnut oak, white oak, those are really good examples around the area. Red oaks. So
you have a bur oak over there.
Oh yeah, bur oak. Yes, that's an excellent one. Has humongous acorns. So I got off course, but the capital is a nice distraction, right? All right. So when the ovary is located above the male and the sepals and the petals, another term for that is hypogynous. That means below the female, right? Does that make sense? Hypogynous. Okay. So that's a description for that flower. Now, the opposite case is where the ovary is located below the sepals and the petals and the stamens. So it would be an inferior ovary. And use epi, like epidermis. Epi is above the female in that case. Okay? So we'll be quizzing you about whether your flowers, your and everything in between. That makes life interesting. Okay. So radial symmetry refers to just the symmetry of the flower itself. So like wine cups are show radial symmetry. A second flower shows bilateral symmetry. Right? If you were to cut it longitudinally, you have two similar parts. You can do that on the outside of us. We're sort of bilateral, symmetric on the outside, for the most part, not inside. Okay. Then vegetative features, and we'll look at that closely in a second. The leaf is composed of the blade and the petiole. Petiole is the stalk of the leaf. And then, as we discussed, the blade can be dissected or entire. So, do you want the cup to put the little caterpillar in?
I would put it outside.
Okay. Put it on an oak tree.
Probably
All right. Or else I'll take it up and put it back on my toes. All right. Yeah, I don't mind. It's fun raising kids. Who's ever done this? All right. Yeah, my daughters and I raised many lunamoths and polyphemus, big moths like that. So, okay. So then the node on the stem is simply the pointed attachment of the leaf. Okay? And imagine the term for between the nodes is called internode. So that's easy to remember. Then the bud at the tip, the terminus of your shoot, is the terminal bud, right? And then you see where the leaves join up with the axis or the stem. The axillary bud is perched in between that angle, between the petiole of the leaf or the blade of the leaf and the stem. Another term for axillary bud is lateral. You'll see both terms. Okay. So that's easy enough. All right. We talked about arrangement of leaves. No, we did not. Okay. We'll look at that closely, in fact, in a couple of minutes. So when the leaves are alternating on the leaf, it's alternate range. When the leaves share a node, two leaves are off. Right? A whorl, that means more than two leaves are around the node. Okay. That's very diagnostic of families, although some families have those alternate opposite. Can be very diagnostic, like the dogwoods are primarily opposite leaves. Types of leaves, simple leaf is just simply the blade is not divided into leaflets. We passed by a lot of smooth sumac out in the garden, and those are pinnately compound, just like the cycad is over here. Okay, and then red buckeye, I didn't point it out, but that one has the palmately compound leaves. You can, let's see. Oh yeah. This is not poison ivy, this is Virginia creeper. That's a good example of compound leaf. Okay. A very nice fine to have in your garden if you manage it in the right place. Oops. And then, we could go on for days talking about, margins. We'll talk about that. The hair and some of the, did you notice how felty the backside of the post is? And that's a very diagnostic characteristic. And I picked up another one. The Mustang grape. This is a great, not a great example, but this would be easy to remember. Mustangs have fur, right? So this is Vitis mustangensis, but it's named for the furry abaxial, that means the bottom side. So you can pass that around. So that looks like a alternate arrangement, and then it has tendrils coming out, which are a little modified. Those leaves? No, I think those are actually branches. Okay. All right. So, okay, external stamina. This is neat. In the winter, you can actually use this to identify plants. You see the leaf scars on that diagram. Look like scars, right? And then they have a little axillary bud perched up on top of it. The terminal bud at the end, the little dots or holes through the bark, called lymph cells, allow exchange of gases between inside, outside of the plant. The node is where the scars are, internode in between. Would that be a alternate or an opposite arrangement? Opposite, right, yep. And then notice the bud scale scar at the bottom there. It's just a series of wrinkles. And that represents from the wrinkle on up to the tip is like 1 year's growth of that twig. Isn't that neat? Okay. So of course in the tropics, that's going to be different because it's growing all year in. But here in the temperate area, you'll see that. Okay. That's pretty easy. And here we go, fruit tops. Phasing from drawings to pictures, but it takes some anyway. We have simple fruits, which means that they're from one flower and one ovary. Okay, so you have a fleshy choice or a dry choice, like a grape would be an example. A berry is a simple fruit, or an caryopsis from the sunflower family, or an achene from some of the other plants that we won't be looking at achenes today. But, all right, so no, I'm sorry, Cypsela for the aster family. Caryopsis is for the grains like corn and things of that nature. Sorry about that. All right. And then aggregate is very interesting. You have one flower with many pistils, and those all develop into fruits. Okay. Then for a compound fruit, you have many flowers and many pistils, and they all fuse together. And a good example of that would be like a pineapple. So you'll see that over there. Okay. Then a drupe is a simple fleshy fruit that has a stony seed in the center. Give an example of that, like a peach, a plum, right? Okay. Capsules. Here's an example. The strawberry bush was just starting to develop capsules outside. Come back in the summer and you'll see it look like that. Cotton is a good example of a capsule. Those woody parts of the capsule break apart, and cotton boll is in the center with the seeds embedded in the cotton. Okra is a good example also of a capsule. Okay. Many members of the mallow family, like cotton and okra, have capsules. A cone, a good classic example is an apple. In that case, the base of the flower, the receptacle, grows around to enclose the ovaries. So the fleshy part of the flower, the fruit is actually formed from the receptacle, the base. So I cut one open so you can peer at it, figure that out. And more dry fruits, we could go on for days discussing dry fruits. Here, lots of examples. See the one on the end, the opium poppy. It's called a poricilum. So the seeds will dump out of the top of that. They're dispersed from there. In the bottom, a legume, the members of what family?
The
Bean family. Yes, we love our bean. And then nuts shown here, like the acorn and the hickory. Simple fleshy fruits. Again, some with a hard center. Though avocado now is considered a berry, because I guess the pit of it is not really stony, so it's not considered a fruit, but your classic plum or peach is definitely very stony inside if you've ever bitten into it. Yes.
What about mango?
Mango is berry. Berry.
Okay.
All right. So a peepo is squash family, watermelons. They have that kind of a harder outside to them. All right. Berry again has a softer outer coat on the fruit. There's a cone. Again, that's an example of an apple where the receptacle grows, the fleshy part. A hesperidium, what does that look like? That is an orange, and it's a specialized berry with a leathery coat and juice vesicles. Only the citrus family has those specialized juice vesicles inside. So, other types of fleshy fruits. Strawberry is another example of an accessory fruit where the receptacle again grows around it, and then outside the little hard seeds, those are AT. Those are a little AT. And okay, aggregate fruits, blackberries, raspberries. Synconium is a specialized fruit, the figs, okay. Then multiple fruits that shown on the far left, even a mulberry is considered a multiple fruit because if you look at mulberries blooming, there are many, many flowers. Those are all fertilized, they form their own fruits and they all fuse together. So it's considered a multiple fruit. Then the hip on the far right is a rose. That's very typical, where again that receptacle kind of grows around and becomes fleshy. Okay, specialized leaves, spines on the cactus, flower parts, bud scales, the bulb scales in an onion, tendrils, okay, leaves, right. Stems, a cladiphyll is just a fancy name for the fleshy stem of a cactus. The spines on the cactus are specialized leaves, right? Stolons connect a plant, one plant to the next, specialized stem. Corm, again, is a specialized, compact, hard stem, and some of our geophyte plants, that means stems are below the ground. And thorns are also, like on the honey bushes, right over there, specialized branch. Rhizome, think of ginger, is a good example for the irises. A tuber on this potato. Typical grasses and fibrous roots, sweet potatoes on the right, carrots are a specialized storage root also. Stilting roots, think about corn or adventitious roots on certain orchids that are epiphytic, have those long roots that originate from a place other than the primary root. Okay, they can pop out on the stem. And climbing roots, like on the Virginia creeper. Okay. So now we'll do some hands-on practice. So I'm following from this book. Again, I'll recommend that book. So look at the two plant specimens. What I've done is I had hoped to work in groups of 3, but so be it. So share the equipment and the plants however you wish. Compare your 2 plants. All right. Feel the leaves on the 2 plants. And you'll notice typically one of these has more of a plastic feeling, not very firm. The other is stiffer, more fleshy feeling. Now everybody touch these and see if you can tell the difference. And look at the veins in them. Oh, and how do you use that? This is called a loop. So you can push the lenses out, and then this is how you use it. Bring it close to the object you're going to look at. Okay. And then start bringing the loop towards your eye, and that's how you can work it. Okay. So bring it, grab the other lens. Yeah. Here. And you can look at the net line, the nation on the plant, right? All right. So does anybody know these drawings, what they are?
President.
Yeah, one of them is Yopon, the one with the thicker leaves, right? And the other one is Chinese privet. Okay. So both based on the net light venation, are they dicots or non-dicots? Yeah, dicots, right. And also, I think most of the yopon I picked up was from a female, right? And it's got berries on it, right? So in the case of the yopon, it would be what kind of flowers to the plant? Dioecious, monoecious, or would it be pepper flowers? It's dioecious, right? So it's separate male and female plants. The privets, there's one of them floating around in the years that flowers. I don't know who has it, but they're so small. They're not looking at it. But they are perfect flowers. That is
I think. All right, so next. Oh, yeah, look at, both the bottom and the upper surface. Both of them, similar, the upper surface is a darker green, lower surface is a lighter green. Alright. All right, so now here's the big question.
Yes.
Are these physical or are they compound? What are you gonna look for? Look in the axle of that, what you think is a blade of the leaf. And look for the axillary bud. And believe me, they are tiny. You'll have to pry it back and then put your loop on it. Okay, axillary. Oh wait. I actually had the picture there, the upper left. Shows the lateral bud, okay, which is an axillary bud. So I'm going to give you the answer. There are teeny little axillary buds in all of these. Okay. Yeah. All right. But what is the difference in the range? Who is on? All right. Yeah. Look closely at your yopon. It's pretty easy to tell. It's alternate, right? Okay. Now the privet, I tried to get really good examples. It's early in the year and they're starting to flush out, but you should have some tips that show a very nice opposite arrangement, right? Then also notice on the privet, the branches are also branching off. See that? Yeah. Okay. So, am I convinced? Yeah. Very nice also. All right. Alternate or opposite. Look at the privet on the top. It very clearly shows, and the bottom opposite, right? And look at the alternate arrangement on the yopon on the bottom. All right. Now look at the leaf margin, and this is really important because we have a native privet out there, and we don't want to be pulling out native privet. Its little leaves are opposite also, but it has a little, edging on it. But look at your privet here. You see any sort of scallops or serrations on the leaf? No, it's pretty smooth, isn't it? Okay, so this is your Chinese privet. It's not the native. So in fact, now we're very careful here, really checking if we have a native one here at Mercer. But a lot of the Chinese privets. Okay, but look at the yopon. And you'll see what I mean about having a scallop edge. Yes?
Okay, down here where I'm down here, so we understand the opposite and alternate. What was the other part you're talking about? The leaf edges,
Okay. On the edge of the leaf blades. Yep. And you see the gallop and, yes, yeah, okay. Now, who had Yopon? I mean, Privet, sorry. There's someone there. Yep. Look at the edge of the slide of the leaf, you see any? No, it's perfectly smooth. So that's diagnostic. And notice how the branching comes. I believe, and the leaves. Yeah, that's what I was explaining. We have another one. We see another opposite, range. If you look at the tips of these, you'll see it. Yes, it has arms, but it has a little scalp. Alright, so here is a page from the, yes, from our book, and these are all, non-native. Yes. Critics often be found in East Texas. And our is the one at the bottom. So when you're in the, working with your trail crews and you're moving through it, teach them about the native privet. And then to make it easy on yourself, the only thing you need to worry about when you're hacking down the privet, and I'll see somebody may treat the stump afterwards, bag up the berries and take them off. But you can, we leave the branches and stuff sort of in the woods stuff out of the way that decompose after a while. So, all right. And how many of you like Yopon tea? It's absolutely delicious. Yeah. So, but you don't want to make tea out of privet because it's toxic. So another reason, be very good about your plant identification. All right, so as I said, it's our only source of caffeine in the temperate area. All our other, well, you go down to South America, you get another species of Yopon nether islets. Anybody know what that one is? Yerba mate. Yeah. So, right. So that is an islet with very fine concentrated minerals. All right. All right. So again, somewhere along here, somebody has flowers, but all for the privet, but they're very small, but they are purple flowers. Whereas the Yopon has male and female separate plants. All right, now we can work on flowers. Okay. So let's pass out. All right. So in fact,
Paper towels.
yeah, you've got paper towels at your seats. Everybody got a little pile of paper towel. Please lay out the paper towel and do this on because really, hopefully nobody's wearing white. The pollen is set. So I'll let y'all pack those out. And again, sometimes I'm lucky and we don't grow the flowers for the classes, but the grocery stores where I get these from. Sometimes they're open, very easy to work with, but you can do the same thing with the butts, and we'll do that. All right. Okay, while those are being packed out. Look at the bag arrangement on this. And then that way you can tell me whether the monopod or tripod. Good. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right now. Okay, so looking at the leaves and I'll look at the veins in this plant, how are they arranged? Yeah, on the stem, yes, they're arranged alternate. The veins and then some we are arranged, parallel, yeah. So it's good guess at the line. Yeah. So look down at those of you with buds. You can look at the tip and see that it's in green, right? And then those of you with the opening flowers, count how many of those petals you have. 5, 6, 4, 6. Okay. So the first, you notice you folks that have the open flowers, the color is pretty uniform, right? They're all either sort of white or sort of orange, right? So in that case, when you can't tell the difference between the seeds and the petals, I can't see the style. If you can't tell the color difference between the sepals and the petals, in England they would call it petal, but here we call them sepals. Okay, so you can't tell them apart. Typically, you're used to seeing the green sepals on your flower, and then you have the next ring of quartz and those are the petals. But these, they're tepals. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I want you all to do this too. It's very gently, whether you have a bud or a flower. Peel off the outside, each of those parts. Just peel off each one. And then count as you do it. Pull off, but I sort of move around, and that's right. Oh, also, did I mention the section kits?
Yeah,
Yeah, we're doing okay without an incentive kit right now. But warning, there are razor blades in there and scalpels, so be careful. So far, nobody has cut their fingers off. Are you having fun?
she has finished and she's using the sharpens.
Oh, okay. Just keep your hands on her ways. Okay, so we'll show the setting her inside the roll up part. Okay, I got it. Okay. How are you doing? Have you peeled all your teeth?
This is a. We did on our own.
Oh, you're doing two? That's not fair. All right. So how many parts do you have? Six. I was hoping you would say six. So that's in threes, right? Typical of a monocot, right? Another hint with a monocot. And now you're going to emasculate this flower. All right. No more statements. Here we go. All right. Just pull off your statements and count those. Here I am. Thank you.
5, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there were 7. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 7 in this one.
Did you tear off the? Okay. Remember, these are cold bars. Sometimes they're exceptions, but I have 6 standing. Did everybody else have?
No, that's 7.
You have 7, okay. And here is a 5 bar. You have 5. Okay. I'm looking for 6, but yeah. Yep. That is your late part. Oh, you look in. All right. You should have this left in your hand. Each has 6. Why can't you amass that? What's your problem? All right. So you're good with this. And the parts are, what is this swollen area where we tore the parts off? Right, that's over it. And the skinny part above that is the style, very good. And the very tip is called the yeah. All right. Oh, I need to catch up.
There we go.
Okay, so these are hybrids. All right. When they do cultivation and breeding, sometimes your parts do funny things. So anyway. All right, so we know this is a monocot. All right, we've identified all the parts here, the tepals. There's another collective term I haven't mentioned. The corolla and the calyx together is called the perianth. So all the perianth parts are the same color as tepals. All right, now here, the parts are the same, and what is the stalk called? The filament, right? And the anther
is the top part with the pollen. All right, stamen. All right. So you like my photographs? This is COVID class. Trying to do everything to do it online because people can, watch us. So, okay, anthers. So again, a hint. This is a monocard. Everything's in threes. Now look at the position of your ovary. The ovary is above the attachment of the stamens and the teeth, right? So it's superior. Yeah, very good. All right. Okay. Does everybody see that? Just wait till you get a little bitty glass. Then you'll really be using your magnifying glasses. Okay. Yeah. All right. View again, sticky stigma style ovary. Here, go ahead and cut, take one of your blades out and make a cut through a cross section through the ovary. So it looks like this. And you should, once you do that, and look at the cross section, you should be able to see little white ovules sometimes, little eggs, maybe, hopefully. In the butt, yes. Now, process. Yeah. So cut it over rice, look in process. So the little eggs come out and I develop it in the process. Once they're fertilized, so what is the transfer of pollen from one flower to the next pollination? Yeah, it can be there's so many forms. Self-pollination, cross-pollination. Typically it's advantageous to have cross-pollination. So there are different ways planters will promote cross-pollination. Could be that sometimes the female part develops later or earlier, or sometimes like violet, they'll have a case where you have flowers that stay totally closed, they never open, to promote self-pollination. And then they'll have open flowers to promote cross-pollination on the same plant. Yeah.
We're not seeing the eggs. Can you help us?
Well, it could be that they're so immature you can't see them.
Well, this was one. Here's this. Maybe it's just my eyesight. Oh. Is there? Yeah, it's kind of funny. Okay, so it's not
It's hard to see.
okay. That's no problem. Thank you.
Okay. All right, so let's see, let's move on because I don't want to be late. Now we're going to do something a little more challenging. We're going to look at the sunflower fancy. That's beautiful. Anyway, is anybody getting too much stuff on their table, or can you handle another? Just give another piece of paper down. Okay. So what we've done, because we don't have, I took one sunflower sunflower family, right? Sure. And what is this one flower?
Sunflower.
Yeah, it's a composite, it's another name of the family composite. So this inflorescence, an inflorescence is the collective flowers on the plants and how they're arranged, right? And this one in the composite family is very compressed. So all the flowers are crowded into what's called a head. Okay? And these are not sepals. They're like specialized racks that are surrounding. So the active are in those hundreds of flowers. Okay? And in the case of these flowers, because they're so reduced in size, the sepals are totally modified. And then think about a dandelion, you know, how the parachute flies through the air.
Mm-hmm.
In that case, the little thread-like parachute items on that seed, those are actually were developed from the plant seed. So some of the aster family have no sepals. Some look like little scales. Some look like little feathers. Others are straight hairs, and they're very diagnostic. So if you're ever feeding out composite flowers, that's a very important part for that. So what we've done is we quartered these. So everybody gets a quarter. Not everybody, but each group of 3. That was the plan, anyway. But I'll cut up this one too. So I gave you an extra sheet. Sorry for all the paper. The one, not is composite fiber.
It's on this deck here. Oh, that's very nice.
This is what it looks like. Behind that, and you see what it looks at the top, what looks like a sunflower. Yeah, that's what you're looking at. Okay. And then I cut that into 4 parts. Yeah. All right, so here's some new terminology. All right. You have, so if you have leftover quarters, just give them to whomever wants them. Who wants a private quarter for themselves? I'll take one. All right. I have 2 kinds of flowers. In the middle, you see all those little central flower, and they're starting to form seeds, it looks like. So think about your sunflower seeds. That's where they develop. And in that case, see that swollen part there? That's the ovary, and that's what's going to develop into your sunflower seed, ultimately. And in that case, you see the sepal in this case is sort of like a little scale looking thing. All right, and the petal is a tube on the central flowers, and they are called disc flowers. And then the showy ones around the edges are called the ray flowers. And they have this big flappy one blade. But their internal, the reproductive parts look about the same. Okay. So in this type of plant, it's called plunger arrangement where the stamens are sort of fused as a tube around the pistil. And so different things mature at different times. So it ensures cross-pollination of the plant. And the very top, if you lose, what I would do is take this and now just break it apart with your fingers. And then you'll have individual disc flowers fall out. Oh, look, you can see the seed. And that little, the sepal in that case is, has a separate return. It's called the patent, but I didn't even put it up there. But look at those stigmas, like they're two arching out top of it, right? See the little yellow?
Yes.
Bifurcated stigma, so it has two parts to it. Kind of hints that it's a dicot.
Yes.
All right. And then also inside the head, you'll have other pieces of material that kind of separate the flowers. And that's called the chaff of the flower. And of the head, that is. Okay. And now let's look at a ray flower. Yeah. So try to peel a flower without breaking the ray off. This is the so it looks fairly similar. You know, you'll see the reproductive part kind of encircled by the blades of the petal, right? Now, in the different groups of members of the sunflower family, now some of them, the ray flowers are not fertile; they never produce seed. And only the disc flowers do. So it really depends on what you would plant. And then also, some members of the sunflower family only have the ray flowers, whereas some only have disc flowers. In the case of the prairie dawn, it has mostly disc flowers, little bitty ray flowers. Occasionally, so. Okay. All right, the chaffy bracts are the little pieces that you'll see when you pull it apart that fall out between the flowers. Disc flower, ray flower, and then the internal ones that haven't even matured yet. The buds, right? You can see that difference when you look at it, right? And notice the point of attachment. That's an example of an inferior ovary, right? So you've got your petals and the stamens and the little seal is attached above the ovary. So that's an inferior, and that's across the board, all astral families. I better not say that. I bet there's an issue there. But, okay. Does that help? All right. So as I say here, the morphology of the pappus, as well as the chaff, the little pieces of material between the flowers. The involucral bracts, those are these leafy green things around the base of your head. And the receptacle, which is this part that everything's attached to. Those are all diagnostics that go between now. Plants and that asteroid. Okay. Reviews. Are y'all processing the flowers still? Everybody done with the flowers now? Did that help? Was that interesting? Yeah. All right. So this one's a dicot, right? You probably noticed a lot of the sunflowers popping up in the endangered native garden. Have a big leaves, net-like donation. All right. Yopon and the ligustrum privet is monocot or a dicot? Dicots, right. They were different because their leaf arrangement was different, right? Privet opposite, Yopon alternate. Which one is non-native? The Asian, the Chinese, right? Okay. And it was introduced through the trade, horticulture trade. I bet a lot of you have, like I did, waxy ligustrum in their front edges, right? Yeah, well, it's hard yanking them out.
Yeah.
Okay, what about this guy? Monocot or dicot? See, I made that picture June of 21. Okay. All right, monocot or dicot for this one? Monocot. Look at that beautiful picture. It really shows the parallel veins. All right. Think fast. What about this one? Is that a flowering plant or a naked seed plant?
Naked seed.
Yay. Okay. All right. So we can talk a little bit more about volunteering at Mercer. Colleen Powell. Have any of you met Colleen yet? Yeah. She's our wonderful volunteer coordinator, and she'll connect you to us, to Carrie and me, or you can just contact me also. But if you're interested in some of the garden activities, she's probably the best one to contact. She does a lot of work with the pollinator. It doesn't show up, does it? Pollinator garden, the blossom brigade, which is basically you go out to the perennial beds and you deadhead flowers, collect seeds, do TLC for the beds, pollinator beds. Then again, I mentioned endangered species and native garden, highly time-consuming garden because we have so many plants in it, and just trying to keep the display so that you have distinct plants visible so you don't get lost in a sea of other plants. Requires a lot of work. Mulching and pruning and planting. We'd love to have your help out there. Should have put that cute picture. Denise is one of our long-term volunteers. I have a picture of her with a little bunny rabbit that she discovered, a clutch of cottontail rabbits. And it was just kind of looking at that. Adorable. So native plant propagation team, they work on Wednesdays on the north side of volunteer propagation greenhouses. So you would, again, Colleen will help you with that. To get there, you go beyond where the Mercer Botanical Center is to the next intersection, next traffic point. Take a right and you go a winding road, and it takes maybe 8 minutes to get there. So from here, they always need help, the native team there. And also, I know Jacob Martin, he's our greenhouse manager for the property here. I think he has a lot of native related projects that you can help him with also. Yeah.
Love.
Yeah.
House.
Yeah. Okay, then we also have docents that lead, help lead tours for kids and adults. A lot of our master naturalists are involved with that also, especially they tend to steer toward the native plants and tours. All right, and then also educating our patrons about native plants during our sale, and that's very important also. And then all the various Mercer Botanical Center projects. This is what our foyer looks like. It's a little bit more crowded now. We have more furniture in there, more things. So again, we have the botany curator offices there, lab, sign shop, even the sign shop. Yes.
Sorry, next week to be the Mother's Day in sale.
Yes.
It's online. Sorry.
Yep. Okay. And they sell native plants at all of our sales. Our propagation team on the north side does a wonderful job. So the sign shop, maybe that sounds a little boring, but you would not believe the help we need in there. We recycle everything in the garden. For plant dyes or the color beds, we pull the signs out, take everything apart, disassemble it, clean it, and then reuse it. And so there's a lot of work that needs to be done for that. So Carrie would be the one managing that because she cuts virtually every sign in the garden now. So the library, we periodically will have projects where we need more volunteers. Last week we had a project where we were shifting books to make additional space for new books that we're getting from Missouri Botanical Gardens, Raven Library. So they're passing on to us duplicates and private collections from Dr. Raven and from Dr. Raven, his wife. So she's actually the director that hired me 20 years ago. And then she went off to Missouri and married Peter. So botanical art. We have a wonderful collection. There's some on the wall over there, the pen and ink ones. They were drawn by about 15 artists from the Houston metro area that were commissioned by Robert Vines. And Robert Vines was the first director of the Houston Museum of Natural Science. And then he moved on to the Spring Branch Independent School District, where he was hired as an environmental science director. They established the Spring Branch Science Center. He started a herbarium there, and an amazing herbarium. And Mercer has used that collection. It's called the SBSC, Spring Branch Science Center Collection, ever since Mercer was formed. And then Dr. Brown was a curator for that particular collection. And he was the major collector. There's an article back there about Dr. Brown. He passed a few years ago. And he was our mentor for our herbarium, for our conservation program. So he approached us and said, hey, Spring Branch is shutting down the herbarium. They need the space for other administration and classroom, that happens. So can you please help? Well, it was a huge number of cabinets and specimens. And at that point, we did not have the Mercer Botanical, and we didn't have room. So then a couple of years passed, and we had the opportunity to acquire the Botanical Center. It had been a regional parks office for the precinct at that time. They outgrew it, and they passed it on to Mercer. So I was able to move about 12 rooms of things from 5 different buildings all into one building. And we have space for the herbarium. So then the county worked with the ISD, Spring Branch, and we now manage that collection as a long-term loan. And we acquired the botanical illustrations, as I mentioned, as a long-term loan, and a very nice botanical reference library. They have over 1,000 books. So we still have a lot of work to be done with those collections, but before it moved here, we would have volunteers every week transfer specimens back and forth from the Spring Branch up to Mercer and back. So we didn't want it to go to A&M, and A&M knew that we needed it as a local reference. So they really supported our adopting the herbarium, and they've been very helpful through the years, helping with that. So just before Harvey hit, all of the over 50,000 or so specimens were moved to Mercer, and their metal cabinets. But a lot of the specimens were in wooden cabinets, so we left those. And the county was very generous and purchased a number of metal cabinets to help house the specimens. And we've basically integrated our small collection. We only have 6 cabinets, and now we have close to 50 cabinets with the 2 collections combined. So there's a lot of work right now. One of our Heartwood members, Margaret Zopp, she has been amazing. First of all, she scanned all of the illustrations front and back, because on the back side of each of those is information about the herbarium specimen that the drawing was made from. And these could have been from, New York Botanic Gardens herbarium, or Fairchild, or Harvard's. So they came from all over the country through Robert Hines for his books. And this book was going to be the cultivated and native plants of the Gold Coast, a title similar to that. But then, unfortunately, he passed before the book could be published. So we also manage his draft, which occupies a cabinet for this wide, all written on legal paper, front and back. So Margaret basically imaged the entire lower cabinet of his works, and then imaged all the specimens. So 2,400 of the illustrations, that is, not specimens, and the book draft. And now she's imaging the remaining 20,000 or so specimens of ours and Spring Branches that have not been imaged. We were recipients as part of our collective herbarium network in Oklahoma and Texas called Torch, of a National Science Foundation grant awarded to Torch. And as part of that, then they funded imaging of our native Texas and Oklahoma specimens, and that amounted to about 30,000. So we had those imaged by an intern that worked with us for a little bit over a year. And then now Margaret has shifted her work toward imaging the balance of the specimens. So the plan is that once they're imaged and then the data is transcribed, then those will be uploaded and available to anybody for use as a reference. So, so then we can just get rid of the specimens, right? We don't because herbarium specimen is so valuable. Researchers can go back and study the genetics of the plants just by using material from the specimen. Our artists out there or authors like Martha use herbarium collection to draw from, just like those artists that drew from those illustrations, and a lab for illustrations for the various flora for Dr. Barnes. Yes.
Do you need people to transcribe the images?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So we have yet another set of volunteers that really get into handling these specimens and then entering the data into our database. And Sherry is a wonderful manager for that. So they especially enjoy the georeferencing. So a lot of these specimens will have like, well, this was found at the intersection of this and that in this county in Texas, or it could be in Washington State. And you have to use Google Earth to then find the coordinates and then enter that into the database. So it's a lot of fun. People really get into that. And then also helping catch up with the names. You know, if you're into that, we use online databases for the current names for our plants. And so there's also a project through the Tampa Research Institute of Texas, because I got so many of theirs already imaged and online, but they haven't been transcribed into the database. They call it the armchair botanist program. So you can actually do the work online at home. So once ours are imaged and transcribed, then we also can do this from their office. But we love to have people there, herbariums. You get to actually see the specimen that you're working on. So, and other projects, just basic curation, checking to see whether specimens are filed correctly. Reattaching loose material with, we just use Elmer glue. It's acid free, and everybody all over the world uses that white glue as a material. And mounting new specimens. Also, we need help with that occasionally. We'll get a backlog. So there's lots to do in the herbarium. Let's see. Our conservation nursery. Like I mentioned, the gay feathers that we just received for restoration use. We need help, potting those up. Just general maintenance. There's always work to be done in nursery with bumping up plants, weeding plants, and general things like that. And then seasonally, we need help with people assisting with our seed cleaning and seed packaging, things of that nature. All right. So, okay. So here's our, that's part of our shade nursery in the back. We use our nursery for the conservation plants used to be here on this property, and then it was moved to the north side, but we had a lot of trouble with the flooding. So now we moved it to the back of the building. It's a higher elevation. And that was funded by some of our garden clubs, the Mercer Society, and also the Center for Plant Conservation. Okay, here's some of the work going on in the library. We do a lot of activities in the library, not just library work, but Carolyn Langlanay, some of you may know her, but she moved to Hayes County, but she was the person that put our library online, and then she also converted it from the Dewey Decimal to the Library of Congress system. But now it's an ongoing work, just adding new books to the library, then deciding, trading out some of the better copies for the new ones we get. There's always work to be done. So, and you see Bianca's up there, Janet and Jennifer. And we just lost Jimmy. She moved to Georgetown, and her last day was last week. She was a long-term volunteer. And let's see. Okay, here's our herbarium. Okay. So yes, we had everything moved and situated before the flood happened. And it's located upstairs for a good reason. And at first it was, oh no, you're going to put it downstairs. I said, I don't think so. And then the Wimberley flood happened. And that's convinced everybody, you don't know what's going to happen with these creeks around here. Could be, another 500-year flood or something coming up. So, all right, here is discussion about imaging. That shows Margaret in the bottom imaging, and John, who did the 30,000. So, and then here we go, more databasing, georeferencing, barcoding. That also, Margaret's doing the barcoding on these. Restoration of specimens, mounting new specimens, and I brought in a herbarium press there, so you, and the brochure tells you a little bit about how pressing is made, and there's an article back there about and a magazine, Texas Highways, that featured an article on regional herbaria. And thanks to our partners up at Brit, since we're a regional herbaria, we were included. So you'll see some pictures of our plants and herbaria. The dogwood back there, one in that series was used for the cover article in that issue. So, okay. And then interns, we need help when we're working with our interns. Our master naturalists are our mentors for interns. So, very appreciative of that. And then our thank you. And then all the people that have helped us through the years. And I want to leave a little time so that you can get up and walk around and look at the displays. It took a few hours to set this up. So I hope you enjoy it, and I hope some of it, helps you remember some of the time. Okay. Oh, Native Plant Society. If you're not a member, I encourage you to consider a membership or to get on their list, and they will send you information about any activities, field trips, native plant sales, other events in the area related to native plants. It's a great group. If you don't want to be part of Houston chapter, you can write on there that you want to be part of Pines and Prairies. And they'll filter it out. And, if you decide on membership, you don't have to be part of Houston to be Pines and Prairies. But they will send you information, and, your emails and share. So help yourself to brochures, and please look at the glass page so you'll see some of the field work that we do.